Hello, everyone. Once again, thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I'm glad to introduce Zoho Expense, your first step towards effortless expense reporting. My name is Unni. I'll be taking you through the application and I'll give you an overview of all the main features. I have my colleague Bhuva, and he'll be joining us for today's session. Let me remind you that this is a listen only mode webinar. So if you have any questions across the webinar session, please do post them in the GoToWebinar control panel chat box and my colleague will be answering them. So let's start with the presentation and let's see what Zoho Expense is. Zoho Expense is an expense reporting tool which will reduce your effort in expense reporting. It automates the recording of expenses. That is, all you have to do is just take a snapshot of the receipt and upload it, and everything else is taken care by Zoho Expense. You can also connect your credit and debit card to this application. It will fetch the transactions and you can convert them into expenses in single click. So you can record employee advances, you can run analytics on the expenses which a company has incurred, you can record reimbursements, you can approve them, approve the expenses submitted by the employees, etc. So let's go a little more deeper into the application. So in Zoho Expense, we have three basic user roles. So the first one is the administrator. So this is the screen which you're seeing right now is the administrator's home screen of Zoho Expense application. Patricia Boyle is the administrator of the Zoho Expense organization, Zilker Global. And this is the dashboard. So they have access. So administrator have access to all the modules in the Zoho Expense application. So that is the users, settings, integrations, all approvals, which is all the company expense reports will be coming up in this section, and they will be able to access them. My approvals, which is like personalized. So if I submit an expense report to Patricia, those reports will be coming up under my approvals. And the other basic features such as uploading receipts, creating expenses reports, connecting the credit and debit cards, analytics section, etc. So if I go to an approver, that is the second user role. So Charles Stone is an approver in the organization Zilker Global. So the settings section, integrations, etc., are not accessible for an approver. So they can just approve. So they have access to my approvals, which is, so if I submit an expense report to Charles, they will be able to access it from the my approvals tab, and other basic features such as uploading receipts, expenses, creating expenses, etc. And if I go to a submitter, so Manish Patel is a submitter in the organization Zilker Global. So they have very limited access. They don't have access to any approval section or setting section. They can just create expenses, that is record expenses, create expense reports, and submit them for approval. So we have a Zoho Expense application available in all three mobile platforms, that is iOS, Android, and Windows. So you can download the application from the respective app stores, and you can use that application for recording your expenses on the way. So you can upload receipts, like if using the phone application, you can take a snapshot of the receipt and upload it. So while you are once the upload is complete, the scan will be in progress, and once the scan is completed, you will all the details in the receipt will be fetched by the application. That is the payment mode, the amount, date, and the merchant will come up, and it will create an expense automatically. So the same thing, I'll be doing it from the computer here. So you can go to the receipts tab and click here. I'm attaching a receipt from the computer. So it's a Starbucks receipt. Yeah, as you the upload is complete now and the scan is in progress. So while the scan is in progress, we'll just quickly check what is in the dashboard. So all the basic details like creating new expense, uploading receipts, and report summary, recent reports, etc., are shown in the dashboard. And you can quickly access them from the dashboard. Everything is accessible from the dashboard itself. And next is the expenses section. So if you want to create an expense manually, you can do it from the expenses tab. Here, all the expenses which you have created until date will be listed in this section. You have a filter to get unreported, expired, uncategorized expenses separately. And to create a new expense, you can click on this plus new button. So here you have three options, whether to add a normal expense, add a mileage expense, or bulk add expenses. So in bulk add expenses section, you can add up to 20 expenses in a single shot. So you can just put in the date, merchant, category, amount. So the amount, it's like you can, if you are having the expense in a different currency, you can choose the currency from this section, and we will convert. automatic currency conversion is available in the application. So it will be converted to your base currency, and the amount will be shown. So this is the bulk upload section, bulk add expenses section. And if you want to add a single expense, you can go to this add expense, the normal expense section. So you can just choose the date here. Merchant can be chosen, and you can categorize it. You can mention the amount, taxes if required. You can claim for reimbursement, and the payment mode can be chosen. Description, you can mark it as billable. So if you're doing expenses for a client, you can mark it billable and choose a customer, that is a client, from here. And if there is any project involved under that customer, you can choose the project as well, and you can click on save. So that expense is created. So in case if it is a mileage expense, the mileage expenses can be recorded from the mobile application in a very better way. We are integrated with GPS, so you can just start the trip and stop the trip using the mobile application. It will fetch the distance automatically. So here you can put in the distance traveled, and the rate per mile will be defined by the administrator user. So according to the distance which you put in, the reimbursable amount will be calculated. And so you can put in like check mark on claim reimbursement. If it is billable, you can choose billable option and click on save. So now we have created two expenses, that is like the travel reimbursement one and the normal expense which we had created. So let's see what happened with the receipt which we uploaded. I'm going back to the receipt section. So the scan is complete, and the amount has come up, the date has come up. So we can just click on the receipt to see more details on it, the date, merchant. So it's in uncategorized format. You can categorize it. And yeah, so the payment mode is credit card here. I'm claiming for reimbursement. You can choose billable, customer if required, and I click on save. So this is how you create expenses using this application. So once you have created expenses, all these expenses will be listed in this section. So whichever, like if you create the expenses from your mobile platform, they will be updated in the web application like simultaneously. So now you have to submit these expenses to a higher authority, that is the approver, to get it approved. So for that, you have to create an expense report. You can go to the reports tab and click on this plus button to create a new report. So let's say trip to New York. You can set the duration. And so here you can see unreported expenses, that is those expenses which are not associated with any report. I'm just clicking on include. So all those three expenses which we had created have come up under this report, and I click on save. So now you can view that report. If you want to record an advance payment, you can record it from this section. You can also get a PDF copy of this report. So you can go to more, click on this PDF button, and the whole details are shown here. So the PDF report will be looking like this. So your company logo and the company details will be shown on the top, the report name, the reporting period, etc. And all the expenses will be listed. So you can have two templates for the report, which I'll come back later. And in the PDF report, you will find all the receipts attached to it. Yeah. So now you can click on submit to submit this expense report. Yeah, before that, let me just go to the card section. So if you have connected your credit or debit card to this application, your card will be shown in this section. To connect your card, you can click on this plus add card button, and you can type in your card name. And you can put in the credentials here and click on submit. So once the card gets connected, the card will be shown in the cards tab like this. So Super CD Plus DAC credit card, it's a dummy card which I have added. So if you just click on this card, all the transactions in this card will be shown here. So let's say for an example, like if this transaction is a personal expense and it needn't be reported, you can just click on, you can just hover the mouse on that transaction and click on exclude. So that transaction will be excluded from the unexpensed list, and it will be moved to this excluded tab. So to convert one of the transactions to an expense, you can just click on it. The date will be coming up and the amount. So you can choose the merchant. So I think Etihad. And so it's an air travel expense. You can choose it billable. You can choose the customer, the project, and save. So yeah, now we have like one more expense which is to be added to that particular report. So I'll just go to this expenses tab. I'll put a check mark on this expense and I'll add it to this report here. So now all all the expenses are in this trip to New York report. I'll just click on it and I can click on submit. So it says like I have violated certain policies. So it is like the policies are set by the administrator user. I'll come to that later. So even if you violate any policies, so this expense is like old. So the receipt date is old. That's the reason it's a 2013 receipt. And so you can see, yeah, it exceeds like $500. So $500 is the limit which was set by my administrator and it's expired. So even if you have policy violations, you can submit them. So it's according to the approver's decision whether to approve this report or to reject this. So I can submit it to any administrator user or an approver. So I'll just submit it to Charles. So now I have submitted this expense report. Now let's go to Charles. So everything is similar. So only thing is he has an additional tab called My Approvals. So the expense report which we had submitted will come up in the My Approval section. I can click on this report. I can view all the details here. I can see the policy violations. If I want to approve them, I can approve it. Or if you want to pass some comments, you can put in the comments here and click on send. So the comment will be sent as an email to the submitter, that is Manish. So all the details are shown here. So I'll just click on approve. Yeah, so now the expense report is approved. So once the reimbursement is done to the employee, you can mark this report as reimbursed from an administrator's Zoho expense organization. So I'm in Zoho expense application. So for that, you have to go. So I'll go to the administrator now. So Patricia Boyle is the administrator for this account. And here you can, so everything is similar until the card section. Analytics, I'll come back to I'll come to it later. So if I go to all approvals, I'll be able to see all the expense reports which are in submitted, approved, rejected, or reimbursed status in the organization. So here I'll be able to see all the expense reports, and in my approvals, all the expense reports which are submitted to me will be shown here. So here I have a filter called to be reimbursed. So I can just click on this to be reimbursed filter to see all the expense reports which are in approved status and those which are awaiting reimbursement. So the expense report which Manish had submitted and Charles had approved, it has come up here. I'll just click on it. So we are integrated with Zoho Books and QuickBooks Online, that accounting platforms. So you can export this report to QuickBooks Online directly from this section. You can, so since it's an administrator user, you can reject the report even if it is approved, or you can record a reimbursement for the report. So once the reimbursement is done to the employee, you can click on the record reimbursement button and mark it as reimbursed. So this is the whole approval workflow in this application. So now let's quickly check like the powers of an administrator user. So when you create a Zoho expense organization, you have to invite users, that is invite your employees to this application, that is to your organization for them to be a part of this organization so that they can submit expenses and expense reports within this organization. So you can create user roles. So as I said, basically there are 3 user roles: administrator, submitter, approver. You can create roles. So for example, you can click on this plus new role and create a user roles. So you can give a name for a role and you can set the access. That is, so you can what all this particular role can allow. So they can create, submit expense reports, record employee advance, like approval section, and settings section. So if you don't want access to settings section, you can just omit this portion, or if you want limited access, you can give access to certain sections in the settings. And you can also add departments and Zoho in this organization. So while you're inviting users, you can go to this user section and click on invite user. You can mention the email address, name, and you can choose which role they are doing in this organization. So for example, if it is a submitter, and let's say Mike. So we are inviting Mike to this organization, and Mike is a submitter. So Mike can have a default approver. That is, like, Mike submits the expense reports to Charles. So whenever Mike is creating an expense report, he will have to submit that expense report to Charles. But if Mike is an approver, still he can have a default approver. But in case when Mike approves an expense report, that report has to be forwarded to Patricia. So likewise, you can set up a multi-stage approval workflow. You can also add criterias. That's only if the amount exceeds to a certain limit, you have to submit this expense report, Charles. Or if it exceeds to a certain limit, whichever report he approves will get forwarded to Patricia. So like that, you can set up a multi-stage approval workflow. And yeah, so next we will go to the settings section. The organization profile. Here you can do any changes in the organization profile. That is, you can upload your company logo, company details can be provided, and fiscal year, language, etc. can be set from here, date format. Next is the company policies. So you can have expense amount limit. So these are the policies which we set for your organization. So $500 is the expense amount limit which I have mentioned, and the receipt required limit is $1,000. So any amount which exceeds these limit, you will get a warning message. And you can make description mandatory and allow uncategorized expenses to be part of expense reports. Next is the mileage section. So mileage can have a default category, a default unit, and mileage rate can be set from this section. So here I have chosen like 1st of January 2016. The mileage rate has changed to 0.575, that $575. So any expense which is created, any mileage expense which is created after that particular date, it will come up under this category, and the rate per mile will be calculated, taken according to the date of the expense. And in expenses section, you can enable automated currency conversion, like make expenses reimbursable by default. You can have an expense expiry period. You can have warnings for, set notifications for expense expiry, and expense field customization. So you can enable the fields which you would like to see in the expense creation page. So only those fields will be shown while you create an expense. So for example, if you don't use billable, you can uncheck the billable option, customer option, etc. from here and click on save. So they won't be coming up while you create expenses. And next is the reports. So yeah, this is the PDF section where you can include signature line, include receipts in PDF report. So standard template and group by category template. There are two templates. The standard template is the one which we had seen some time before, and the group by category template will be looking like this. So all the expenses will be grouped by category, and we'll have a subtotal of the category. Here also all the expense receipts will be listed in the PDF report. And so upon on expense report submission, when an expense report is submitted, the approver will get a notification email, and that notification email will have a PDF copy of the report attached to it. So that's optional. You can uncheck it from here, and you can copy the submitter in the same email. And if you want to have a different person to get a notification email while you submit an expense report, you can mention their email address here. Similarly, when it is getting approved, if someone wants a copy of the report, you can mention their email address here, and automatically it will be sent to them. You can allow approvers to approve their own reports and make approval due. You can set a due date for the approval. So you can set when to get notifications, like when the reports are approved or rejected, or when marked as reimbursed, etc. And next we'll go to the categories section. So you can add new categories. So we have provided certain categories in the active section. You can go to the inactive section and make them active if required. Like more categories are there. If you want to create, if the category which you want is not available in Zoho Expense, you can create a new category by clicking on this plus new category button. and put in the category name. And if this category should override the general policies, that is, the general policies are expense amount limit $500 and receipt required limit $1,000, you can override them by clicking on this button. So you can have a separate expense amount limit for a category. You can have a GL code, account code for easy importing in your accounting platform. And yeah, next is the customer section. So here you can add new customers, edit them, delete them, etc. So you can click on this plus new customer. You can type in the customer display name and the currency in which you're dealing with the customer. So the contact person's address, notes, etc. can be added from this section. And the projects. So in the project section, you can click on this plus new project button. You can put in the project name and the customer for whom you are doing that particular project. You can also associate the users. That is, if like maybe you have 50 employees, out of which 5 are working for one project, you can you can associate those 5 employees to this particular project, so that only they will be able to access, or they will be able to record expenses under this project. And yeah, next is a master list of merchants. So when you create an expense itself, you have an option to type the merchant name. So when a submitter or an approver, or like let's say when a user types in a merchant name, it would be added to the master list, so that if any employee undergoes an expense with that particular merchant, they'll be able to choose the merchant name from the drop down. So from the master list, you can, like, if duplications happen, you can click on them and click on merge. You can create a new merchant. So if you create a new merchant from this section, it will be reflected in the whole organization. And next is the currencies. So by default, we will be providing 10 currencies in the application. So if you want more currencies, you can click on this plus new currency button. All the currencies are listed here. You can choose the currency code and click on save. That currency will be added to your Zoho expense organization. And the next is the taxes. So you can add taxes to this your organization. You can click on this plus new tax button, put in the tax name and the rate, and if it is a compound tax, you can put a check mark here and click on save. So those taxes and tax groups will be listed while your employee creates expenses. So next we will go to the analytics section. So analytics section is available for all the users, that is submitters, approvers, or whichever is the user role, they will have access to analytics section. But when a submitter runs an analytics on expenses, only the expenses which are created by him will be taken to consideration, a submitter or an approver. But when an administrator runs an analytics, the whole the organization expense, the expenses under the whole organization will be taken to consideration. So let's say we're running an analytics on expenses by project. You can customize the report. You can choose the date range, and you can choose the user. For example, if you want a user-based project report, you can choose the user as well. And all the submitted, approved, reimbursed, and rejected expenses will be taken to consideration. So those expenses which are in draft status will not be considered for analytics. So you can click on run report, and all the projects will be listed here. So right now we have only one project. So you can click on that project to know more details on these expenses. So this project was created by us. And if you want more details, it's customizable. So the fields which you want from the expense section can be selected from this section, and you can print it, or you can export it as a PDF, CSV, or an XLS file. So likewise, you can run analytics on expense details, expenses by category, merchant, customer, user. You can generate tax summary reports, etc. And the last section, which is the integrations. So currently we are integrated with 2 accounting platforms. One is Zoho Books and the other one is QuickBooks. Zoho Books is so you can access Zoho Books from directly from the Zoho expense application. So when an expense gets approved in Zoho expense, so let's say when an expense report gets approved in Zoho expense, all the expenses in that particular expense report will be moved to Zoho Books as your company's expenses. So from Zoho Books, you will be able to, you can go to the Purchases tab, Expenses, and we have a separate filter from Zoho Expense. So if it's a reimbursable expense, it will fall under the employee reimbursements category. Employee reimbursements account, and you can invoice your customers from Zoho Books. Um, and similarly, QuickBooks. So QuickBooks, like it is not automated. So when an expense report is approved, the administrator can push the expense report to the QuickBooks online organization. So this is all about the integrations with the accounting platform, and now we are integrated with Zoho CRM. So like the accounts and contacts in your Zoho CRM will be coming up as customers and their contact persons in Zoho Expense. So this is all about Zoho Expense, and now we can have an interactive session. If you have any questions, kindly post them. So if you want me to explain certain topics or any, like if you want me to go deeper into any sections, kindly let me know. I'll be glad to do that for you. Thank you.